The dropship cut through the dark sky like a falling blade. Its engines burned blue as it descended toward the war-torn surface of the alien world below. From orbit, the planet looked beautiful: wide oceans, glowing cities, long curves of light across the night side. From closer range, it looked broken. Fires burned where towers once stood. Defense grids flickered and failed. This was enemy space, deep inside territory that had been at war with humanity for years. Captain Elias Rourke stood strapped inside the dropship, silent and still. His armor was scratched and worn, marked by dozens of missions. His face showed no fear, only focus. To him, this was just another operation. In, complete the task, get out. That was how he survived. Around him, his team checked weapons and systems. No one talked much. They all knew the mission briefing by heart. Infiltrate the capital zone. Disable a key communications hub. Gather any useful intelligence. Extraction in 6 hours. High risk but acceptable losses. The kind of words commanders used when they were far away and safe. The dropship shook as anti-air fire grazed its shields. 30 seconds, the pilot called out. Rourke tightened his grip on his rifle. He had fought many species during the war. Some were cruel, some were cold, some were just scared. He did not hate them. Hate made mistakes easier to make. The ramp dropped. Smoke and heat rushed in. Move, Rourke ordered. They hit the ground fast, spreading out into the ruins of what had once been a tall alien research complex. The air smelled sharp and metallic. Strange symbols glowed faintly on cracked walls. This world belonged to the Velari Empire, one of humanity's strongest enemies. Their technology was advanced. Their leadership was ruthless. Rourke led his team inside through a shattered entrance. Sensors showed light resistance nearby, but nothing heavy. Too quiet. He did not like quiet. They moved floor by floor, disabling security nodes and marking data cores for later pickup. Everything went according to plan for the first hour. No surprises. No casualties. Just a mission. Then Sergeant Hale stopped suddenly. "Captain," he said quietly, "I'm reading something strange." Rourke raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. "What kind of strange?" "Power usage. Deep underground, not military grade, old tech, but heavily shielded." Rourke frowned. "That's not in the intel." "Nothing about sublevels this deep," Hale replied. Rourke hesitated for only a second. "Show me." They moved past a collapsed corridor into a hidden lift shaft, partially concealed behind a false wall. Alien design, but clearly meant to be hidden. The lift still had power. "This place wasn't abandoned," one soldier muttered. Rourke activated the lift. As it descended, the air grew colder. The lights dimmed. His instincts screamed at him to turn back. Missions failed when soldiers followed instincts instead of orders. Missions also failed when soldiers ignored them. The lift stopped far below the surface. The doors opened into a long chamber filled with soft blue light. Strange machines lined the walls, old and quiet, still humming. At the center of the room stood a containment field. Inside it was a single figure. She was not armored. She was not armed. She was kneeling, her posture weak, her breathing shallow. Her skin shimmered with faint color patterns common to her species, but they were dull and uneven, a sign of injury or illness. Restraint bands glowed around her wrists and ankles. Rourke froze. Hale's voice dropped to a whisper. "Captain, that's a Velari royal mark." Rourke saw it too. A thin circlet-like structure embedded near her temple, glowing faintly. Only one group carried such marks. "The Queen's bloodline," Hale said. The alien lifted her head slowly. Her eyes met Rourke's through the field. There was fear there, clear and raw. Not anger, not hatred, fear. Rourke felt something shift inside him, small but sharp. Command's voice came through his comm a moment later. "Rourke, status report, your signal dipped." He hesitated. "We found an unlisted sublevel, possible high-value alien asset." There was a pause, then the reply came cold and fast. "Negative, do not engage, do not extract, your primary objective takes priority." Rourke looked at the alien again. She was shaking now, her strength failing. "Sir," Hale said quietly, "she's hurt, bad." Command spoke again. "Captain, that individual is an enemy. The Velari leadership authorized genocide-level strikes against Earth. Do not forget that." Rourke did not respond immediately. He remembered Earth cities burning. He remembered civilians lost. He remembered following orders that had cost lives on both sides, but he also remembered something else: the difference between a threat and a prisoner. "She's not fighting," Rourke said finally. "She's restrained. This looks like internal detention." "That is irrelevant," Command replied. "Abort this deviation." Rourke stepped closer to the containment field. The alien flinched, pressing herself back as far as she could go. She said something in her language, weak and broken. His translator struggled, then produced a rough result: "Please do not leave." The words hit harder than any weapon. Rourke closed his eyes for a brief second. "Captain," Hale said, tension clear in his voice. "Orders." Rourke opened his eyes. "We're taking her out," he said. Silence filled the comm channel. Command's reply came sharp: "That is a direct violation." "I understand," Rourke answered calmly. "Mark it on my record." He turned to the containment controls. The system resisted his override, but human tech was designed for adaptability. Sparks flew as the field dropped. The alien collapsed forward. Rourke caught her before she hit the floor. She was lighter than he expected, too light. Her breathing was uneven. Her eyes fluttered, trying to stay open. "Easy," Rourke said softly, more to himself than to her. "You're safe for now." She did not understand the words, but his tone seemed to matter. Her grip tightened weakly on his armor. Alarms began to sound. "They know," Hale said. "Internal security is waking up." Rourke lifted the alien carefully, securing her with support straps. "Then we move." "Hale, reroute extraction. We're going to need cover." "You're serious," Hale said. Rourke met his eyes. "I don't give orders I don't mean." The team moved fast through alternate corridors as enemy signals spiked. The Velari defenses activated, not to protect the facility but to seal it. "They're trying to lock us in," one soldier shouted. Rourke adjusted course, leading them through maintenance shafts and broken halls. The alien stirred against him, letting out a weak sound. "Stay with me," he muttered. They broke into an open courtyard just as enemy drones dropped from the sky. Plasma fire lit the air. Rourke's team returned fire, moving with practiced coordination. For the first time since landing, the mission had fully collapsed. And yet Rourke felt strangely clear. This was no longer just about objectives and orders. This was about a choice. The dropship's signal appeared on his display, delayed but still active. Extraction would be dangerous, possibly fatal. As they ran, the alien opened her eyes again. She looked up at Rourke, confusion mixing with fear. Through the translator, her voice came faint but clear. "Why help me?" Rourke did not slow down. "Because," he said, breath heavy, "you're not a weapon." Enemy fire tore into the ground behind them. The future of the war shifted slightly, quietly, without anyone in command realizing it yet. What had started as just another mission was already something else entirely. And nothing, on that world or beyond it, would stay the same. The dropship lifted off under heavy fire, its shields flashing as plasma bolts struck and scattered across the hull. Inside, the space was loud with alarms, sharp breathing, and the low hum of engines pushed beyond safe limits. Captain Elias Rourke remained standing, one arm locked into a support rail, the other holding the alien princess steady as the ship climbed into the sky. She was unconscious now. Her body was warm, but her pulse was weak. Medical readings scrolled across Rourke's visor, warning signs flashing again and again. Dehydration, internal damage, long-term restraint stress. Whoever had kept her imprisoned had not planned for her comfort or survival. The dropship broke through the lower atmosphere and vanished into space. Only then did the alarms quiet. "Status," Rourke said. Pilot Reyes let out a breath. "Shields at 30%. Engines stressed but holding. We won't outrun pursuit if they launch interceptors. They will, Hale said from the side bench. Velari won't let this go, Rourke nodded. I know. The ship's medical drone activated, hovering near the alien. It scanned her carefully, projecting a rough analysis. She needs a proper medbay, Hale said. Soon. Rourke looked down at her face. Up close, she looked even younger than he had thought. Her features were softer than most Velari he had encountered. Not a warrior. Not a commander. Just someone caught in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong bloodline. Command reconnected moments later. Captain Rourke, the voice said, tight and controlled. You are ordered to surrender the alien asset immediately. Divert to the nearest neutral station. Rourke's jaw tightened. Negative, she won't survive a transfer. That is not your concern, Command replied. Your actions have compromised the mission and placed your team at risk. Rourke kept his voice steady. My team is alive. And this individual was unlawfully detained by her own people. She's not combatant. There was a pause, then colder. Captain, you are emotionally compromised. Rourke did not answer. He cut the channel. Hale looked at him. That's going to cost you. I know, Rourke said. The alien stirred slightly. Her eyes opened, unfocused. She made a weak sound, her fingers curling against Rourke's armor. He lowered his voice. You're safe. Try not to move. She looked at him, confusion clear. The translator struggled, then activated. Why still? She whispered. You were dying, Rourke said simply. We don't leave people to die. Her eyes widened slightly. Your kind fights us. We fight your leaders, he replied, not prisoners. She closed her eyes again as if the effort of understanding was too much. Hours passed in tense silence as the dropship navigated through debris fields and blind zones to avoid detection. Eventually, they docked with a human forward carrier hidden beyond the system's edge. As soon as the ramp opened, medics rushed in. Rourke stepped back reluctantly as they transferred the alien to a medical stretcher. She clutched his wrist weakly before they pulled her away. Don't, she whispered. Rourke stayed still until her grip loosened. I'll be here, he said. The medbay lights were bright and clean, filled with quiet machines and soft human voices. Doctors worked quickly, adapting tools to alien biology, guided by partial intel and experience gained through years of war. She's in critical condition, the lead medic said. Long-term confinement caused damage we're still mapping, but she'll live. Rourke felt tension drain from his shoulders for the first time since the surface. Good, he said. She's Velari royalty, the medic continued. You know what this means. I do, Rourke replied. The alien woke several hours later. This time her eyes were clear. She lay still, observing the room, the machines, the humans. When Rourke stepped into her line of sight, she stiffened slightly. You stayed, she said quietly. Yes, Rourke answered. My name, she said after a pause, is Saris. Rourke nodded. I'm Elias. She studied him carefully. Your people were supposed to kill me. That was never the plan, he said. Finding you wasn't even part of it. Then why risk everything, she asked. Rourke considered the question. Because sometimes orders are wrong. Saris looked away, her expression unreadable. My people imprisoned me because I said the same thing. Over the next days, she slowly recovered. Under medical supervision, she shared pieces of her story. She had spoken against the Velari ruling council, against their plan to wipe out humanity completely. She had argued that the war was built on fear and pride, not survival. They called it treason, Saris said. My mother, the queen, could not protect me without tearing the empire apart, so they hid me and waited. Waited for what? Rourke asked. For me to disappear, Saris replied softly. Human intelligence officers listened closely. What she revealed was worse than expected. A coordinated strike, planet-killer weapons, a timetable already in motion. This changes everything, one analyst said. If this is true, it is, Saris interrupted. I saw the plans. Command was divided. Some wanted to use Saris as leverage. Others argued for returning her to destabilize the Velari Empire. A few demanded her execution to avoid complications. Rourke stood in the room as they debated her life like a tactical asset. "She's not a tool," he said firmly. "She's a witness." "And an enemy leader," someone shot back. "She's neither," Rourke replied. "She's the reason the war might not end with extinction." The room fell silent. Saris watched him, something unreadable in her eyes. Later, as the ship drifted quietly through space, she spoke again. "If I return to my people, they will kill me." "If you stay," Rourke said, "you'll be hunted." She gave a faint, humorless smile. "Then my fate is the same either way." Rourke looked at her. "Not exactly. Here you have a choice." She was quiet for a long time. "My people taught me humans were monsters," she said, "that you devour worlds." Rourke shrugged. "Some days it feels that way." She looked at him again, really looked. "You carried me out of a prison built by my own kind. You argued with your leaders for my life." "Still arguing," he said. A small sound escaped her, almost a laugh. In the following days, Velari signals spiked across nearby systems. Patrols increased. Bounties were issued. Her survival had been noticed. "They want her erased," Hale said. "That alone tells me she matters." Rourke nodded. "And that means protecting her matters." Sarah stood by the viewport, watching stars slide past. "You are risking war within your own command for me." Rourke joined her. "Wars don't just start with weapons, they start with decisions." She turned toward him. "Then I will make one as well." Rourke raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "I will speak," she said. "Not only to your leaders, but to mine. I will tell the truth openly, even if it costs me everything." Rourke studied her face. There was fear there, but also resolve. "That will put you in the center of this," he warned. "I have been there my whole life," Saris replied. Outside the ship, space remained silent. But beneath that silence, forces were shifting. Alliances strained. Plans cracked. What began as a rescue had become something far more dangerous. Not just for Rourke, but for the entire galaxy. The human carrier drifted through deep space, its engines low and quiet to avoid detection. Inside, tension filled every corridor. Screens showed growing Velari activity across nearby systems. Patrol routes were changing. Long-range scans picked up coded signals that human analysts could not fully break. Something was moving, and it was moving fast. Captain Elias Rourke stood in a briefing room with senior officers, intelligence analysts, and Saris. She stood straight despite her injuries, her posture calm, her eyes steady. She wore a simple medical garment, not royal markings. Still, everyone in the room knew who she was. "She is telling the truth," an analyst said, pointing to a projection. "Her information matches fragments we intercepted weeks ago. We dismissed them as incomplete." "They were not incomplete," Sarah said quietly. "They were hidden." The council divided the plan so no single group could see all of it. A senior commander crossed his arms. "And you expect us to believe this ends with peace?" Saris met his gaze. "I expect it to end with survival for both our peoples." The room was silent. Rourke watched them weigh her words, their eyes moving between fear and calculation. He had seen this look before. It was the look people wore when the cost of doing nothing became too high to ignore. "The strike window is less than 3 cycles away," the analyst continued. "If she's right, we don't have time. And if she's wrong," another officer said, "we risk giving the enemy a voice inside our command structure." Rourke stepped forward. "She's already given us more than any spy ever has. Killing her or handing her back doesn't erase what she knows." The commander exhaled slowly. "What do you propose, Captain?" Rourke did not hesitate. "We let her speak, publicly." Murmurs spread through the room. "To who?" someone asked. "To everyone," Rourke replied. "Velari civilians, military units, fringe systems, anyone who can hear," Saris nodded. "The council survives on silence and fear. If the truth is heard, their control weakens." "That also paints a target on this ship," the commander said. Rourke met his eyes. "It already has one." The decision was not unanimous, but time forced action. Preparations began immediately. A mobile broadcast array was installed on a small outpost near a neutral relay zone. It was old, damaged, and barely functional, but it could reach far enough. The plan was simple and dangerous. Move Saris to the outpost, activate the array, broadcast her message, hold long enough for it to spread, then escape if escape was still possible. Velari forces would come, that was certain. As the carrier approached the outpost, alarms sounded across the ship. Multiple contacts, Hale reported from the command deck. Velari strike craft, fast. They found us, someone muttered. Rourke looked at Saris. This is your last chance to step back. She shook her head. I will not hide again. The outpost was little more than a hollowed asteroid with docking clamps and old defense turrets. As Rourke's team escorted Saris inside, explosions rocked the exterior. Human fighters launched to intercept, but the Velari had numbers. The broadcast room was small and cold. Wires ran along the walls. The main console flickered, struggling to stay alive. Signal strength, Rourke asked. Unstable, Hale replied. But if we push it, Rourke said. Sarah stepped toward the console. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed them on the interface. She took a slow breath. The signal went live. Across Velari space, screens flickered, in military barracks, in civilian districts, on private ships and distant colonies. Saris appeared before them. My name is Saris, she began, her voice steady. Daughter of the Queen, prisoner of the Council. Gasps echoed across distant worlds. I was imprisoned not by humans but by my own people, not because I betrayed our empire but because I refused to support extinction. Behind her, explosions shook the outpost. Rourke's team formed a defensive line at the doorway. Saris continued. The Council plans to destroy Earth and every human world, not to end the war but to secure power through fear. I have seen the plans. I was silenced for opposing them. Velari soldiers breached the outer corridors. Human weapons fired. The floor vibrated under heavy impact. Rourke fired back, moving with calm precision. Every second mattered. Saris's voice did not shake. Humans did not kill me when they had every reason to. They did not trade me. They did not abandon me. They carried me from a prison my own kind built. A blast threw Rourke against the wall. His armor absorbed most of it, but pain flared through his side. He pushed himself up. Captain, Hale shouted, we're losing the perimeter. Hold, Rourke replied. Just hold. Saris reached the final part of her message. If you hear this, know that the war you are fighting is built on lies. Know that there is another path. The signal spiked, then stabilized. Message is spreading, Hale said. Fast. Rourke smiled grimly. Then it's worth it. Velari shock troops flooded the corridor. Rourke and his team fell back, firing, covering each other with practiced trust. One by one, exits were sealed behind them. Extraction is compromised, Hale said. No clear route. Rourke looked at Saris. The data core, is it uploaded? Yes, she said. Everything. Rourke made a decision. Hale, he said quietly, get her out. Hale stared at him. What? I'll hold them, Rourke said. The rest of you go. That's suicide, Hale snapped. Rourke met his eyes. It's time. Saris stepped forward. No, I will not leave you. Rourke shook his head. You already chose to stand, now let me choose. Another explosion tore through the wall, debris rained down. Hale grabbed Saris's arm. We don't have time. Saris looked at Rourke. Something passed between them, understanding and something deeper. You changed everything, she said softly. Rourke gave a tired smile. So did you. They were gone moments later. Rourke turned back toward the corridor alone. His ammo was low, his armor cracked, but he stood firm. Velari troops advanced cautiously now. They had lost many already. Rourke fired until his rifle overheated. Then he used his sidearm, then his hands. He did not know how long he held them back. Time blurred into sound and motion and pain. Finally, a heavy impact sent him to the ground. His vision dimmed. As consciousness slipped, he heard distant signals, Velari channels in chaos, commands contradicting each other, units standing down. The broadcast had worked. Rourke did not know if he would see another sunrise, but somewhere beyond the smoke and silence, the war had changed. Not because of a fleet, not because of a weapon, but because a human refused to abandon an enemy and an alien refused to stay silent. Darkness came and went in slow waves. Captain Elias Rourke was aware of pain before he was aware of anything else. It spread through his body like fire under his skin. His armor felt heavy, cracked, useless. His ears rang not with sound but with silence so deep it pressed on his thoughts. He tried to move. Nothing happened. Voices drifted in and out. Some were sharp and unfamiliar. Others were distant, distorted by layers of failing consciousness. Alive human. Orders unclear. Rourke forced his eyes open. Blurry shapes filled his vision. Tall figures, angular armor, Velari soldiers. For a brief moment, instinct kicked in. His hand twitched, searching for a weapon that was no longer there. A sharp pain followed and something pressed him back down. "Do not move," a voice said in broken common. "You are injured," Rourke laughed weakly. "You don't say." The Velari soldier stiffened, clearly unsure how to respond. Rourke's vision slowly cleared. He was lying on a flat surface inside a transport craft. Restraint fields held his limbs in place, but they were medical, not prison grade. That alone confused him. "Why am I not dead?" Rourke asked. The soldier hesitated. "Because we were ordered not to kill you." "By who?" Rourke asked. The soldier glanced away. "By command, which command is no longer certain." That was when Rourke understood. The broadcast had done more than spread information. It had shattered authority. The transport shook as it moved through space. Outside, through a narrow viewport, Rourke saw flashes of light, ships maneuvering, weapons firing, then stopping. Velari vessels pulled away from each other, some retreating, others holding position without engaging. Confusion ruled the battlefield. Hours later, Rourke was transferred to a larger vessel. His restraints were removed, replaced with stabilizing medical fields. Velari medics worked carefully, their movements precise but tense. They did not look at him with hatred. They looked at him with uncertainty. "You should not be alive," one medic said quietly. "Yet here we are," Rourke replied. The medic studied him. "You protected her." Rourke said nothing. "She spoke," the medic continued. "Across the Empire, worlds that have not heard her voice in cycles now debate openly. Military units hesitate, civilians question orders." Rourke closed his eyes. "Good." The medic paused. "You are a contradiction." Rourke smiled faintly. "I get that a lot." Meanwhile, far from the damaged outpost, Sarah stood aboard the human carrier, her hands gripping the edge of a console as she watched chaotic data streams scroll past. Reports came in faster than analysts could process them. Velari fleets disengaging, colonial governors refusing council directives, military commanders demanding clarification they were no longer receiving. "They're fracturing," Hale said, disbelief in his voice. "Not all of them, but enough." Saris did not smile. Her eyes searched the data, her thoughts elsewhere. "Where is he?" she asked quietly. Hale hesitated. "We lost his signal during extraction." Saris's grip tightened. "You promised." "I promised we would try," Hale said softly. "And we are." Human command was in turmoil. Some leaders saw opportunity, others saw disaster. Orders conflicted. Protocols were suspended. Emergency councils formed and dissolved within hours. Saris was summoned to address them again. She stood before a room of human leaders, her posture calm but her voice heavy with urgency. "Captain Rourke did not act for advantage," she said. "He acted because he believed life had value beyond strategy. If you abandon him now, you become what my people feared you were." Silence followed. A senior human admiral spoke at last. "We cannot ignore what he's done or what you've revealed." "Then don't," Saris replied. "Prove that the message was not a lie." The decision was made. A joint recovery operation was authorized, not public, not denied. A single objective: locate and retrieve Captain Elias Rourke. Back aboard the Velari vessel, Rourke's condition stabilized. He was no longer restrained. He sat on the edge of a medical platform, his armor removed, replaced with simple clothing. A Velari officer entered the chamber, older, decorated. "You are a problem," the officer said plainly. Rourke looked up. "I hear that a lot too." "You disrupted centuries of controlled order," the officer continued. "You gave voice to doubt." "I gave her a chance to speak," Rourke replied. "The doubt was already there." The officer studied him. "Some want you executed, others want you hidden, a few want you released." Rourke raised an eyebrow. "That's new." "The Empire is changing," the officer said, "violently." "Quietly, both." Rourke leaned back slightly, wincing at the pain. "And where do I fit into that?" "You are leverage," the officer replied. "Symbolic." Rourke shook his head. "I didn't do this to be a symbol." "No," the officer agreed. "That is why you became one." Before Rourke could respond, alarms sounded again, different this time. Not combat alarms, navigation alerts. The ship shuddered. A voice echoed through the corridors, urgent and strained. "Unknown vessels emerging from jump space. Human configuration." Rourke smiled. Elsewhere, the human strike group arrived fast and hard, but not with open weapons. Their ships moved into visible positions, broadcasting a single message across all channels. "We are here for our soldier." Velari vessels formed defensive lines, but hesitated. Orders conflicted. Some commanders powered weapons, others shut them down. Sarah stood on the bridge of the lead human ship, watching the standoff unfold. "Open a channel," she said. The request went through. A Velari council representative appeared on screen, his expression tight. "You bring fleets into our space," he said. "This is an act of aggression." Saris met his gaze. "You brought extinction plans into ours. This is an act of restraint." She continued before he could interrupt. "Release Captain Rourke, alive, unharmed. Do that and you show the Empire that this moment can still end without blood." "And if we refuse?" the counselor asked. Saris's voice hardened. "Then you confirm every word I spoke." The silence that followed was heavy. Minutes passed, then a signal came through. A small Velari transport detached from the larger vessel and moved toward the human fleet. Inside it, Rourke sat quietly, heart pounding despite himself. The officer who had spoken to him earlier stood nearby. "This decision will not save the Empire," the officer said. "But it may save its soul," Rourke nodded. "That's usually how it starts." The transport docked. As the hatch opened, human marines raised weapons, then lowered them when Rourke stepped forward, unarmed but standing tall. Hale reached him first, gripping his shoulder hard. "You stubborn idiot," Rourke smiled weakly. "Took you long enough." Then Sarah stood before him. For a moment neither spoke. "You're alive," she said. "Disappointing, I know," Rourke replied. Her expression broke, relief flooding through. "You should not have stayed." He shrugged. Someone had to. They returned to the human carrier amid guarded quiet. No cheers, no celebration, just the weight of what had happened and what was still coming. Reports continued to pour in. Velari worlds declaring neutrality. Council members assassinated by their own guards. Entire fleets standing down. But also radical factions forming. Hardliners preparing to strike anyway. "The war isn't over," Hale said grimly. "No," Rourke agreed. "It's changing." Sarah stood beside him, looking at the stars beyond the viewport. "Change always hurts." Rourke glanced at her. "But it beats extinction." She nodded slowly. Far across the galaxy, old certainties collapsed. Power shifted. Lines blurred. Humanity was no longer just an enemy. It was a mirror. And in that reflection, the galaxy was being forced to decide what it wanted to become. The galaxy was not silent, but it was quieter than it had been in centuries. Systems that had been ready to obey without question were now unsure. Military units that had followed orders to the letter hesitated, debated, and in some cases refused to act. The voice of the princess, Saris, had spread farther than anyone could have predicted. Her words were not just a message, they were a spark. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of the human carrier, leaning against the railing. His armor was repaired but still marked with scratches and dents, reminders of the battles that had nearly ended him. His hands itched to grip a weapon, though the danger was no longer immediate. Hale was beside him, scanning long-range communications and fleet movements. "They're talking to each other," Hale said, pointing to the holographic map. "The Velari Empire is splitting faster than we expected. Some sectors want peace, others want war, but they're unsure who to follow," Rourke nodded. "And the Council? Fragmented," Hale replied. "Some members are missing. Others are trying to reorganize, but they can't coordinate. They're arguing openly in channels now. Entire fleets are frozen because no one has authority to give orders." Saris entered the bridge. She moved carefully, still recovering, but her posture was upright and her gaze steady. Her eyes scanned the map, taking in the scattered positions of her people. "This is what I hoped for," she said softly, "but not all will see it as truth." Rourke turned to her. "Some will never believe it until it's too late, but the ones who do, that's enough to start a new path." She looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. "My mother, the Queen, she is alive, isn't she?" "I don't know," Rourke said, "but she will hear the truth soon enough. The question is whether she will accept it or try to continue what the Council started." Saris nodded. "And me?" she asked. "What will I become?" Rourke gave her a small, almost ironic smile. "Someone who changed the fate of two civilizations. That's more than most rulers ever achieve." She allowed herself a faint smile in return, though worry lingered in her eyes. "And you?" "I'm just a soldier," he said, "a stubborn one." Hale interrupted, pointing to a flashing alert. "Incoming transmission. Velari civilian networks. They're requesting a live broadcast. They want to hear from the princess directly." Rourke raised an eyebrow. "She's ready." Saris took a deep breath. "I've waited for this my whole life." The carrier shifted into position, and the broadcast began. Across the Velari Empire, screens lit up in homes, military quarters, ships, and public squares. Saris appeared, calm and steady. Her voice carried the weight of truth and the courage of survival. "I am Saris, daughter of the Velari Queen. For months I have been hidden, silenced, and threatened because I opposed the Council's plan to destroy humanity. Their plan was built on fear, on pride, and on lies. I was their prisoner because I refused to participate. I am alive today because a human soldier chose life over orders, integrity over convenience. Humanity has shown us the strength we have lost in our own empire, and I speak now so that my people may know the truth." The reaction was immediate. In some cities, crowds cheered, waving banners with symbols that had been forbidden for generations. Soldiers hesitated, lowering weapons as rumors spread that the Council had no control. Political leaders argued openly in forums that had been closed for centuries. Entire regions began to shift allegiances. Rourke watched from the bridge, his hands resting on the railing. He had fought countless battles, but none like this. This was not a fight with weapons. This was a battle for hearts, for choices, for the very soul of a civilization. The human fleet moved to provide support where necessary, but mostly they remained observers. They did not interfere in the internal conflict. Saris had requested that her people have the chance to choose their own path, even if it meant risk. Then the news came. Some of the Council's hardliners had mobilized ships, attempting to regain control. Human ships intercepted them quickly, not to destroy, but to block. Velari ships retreated, confused and leaderless. Rourke turned to Saris. "It's working. They're listening. They're questioning everything," she nodded. "And yet the danger is not over. Some will fight, some will flee, some will cling to old power." "Let them," Rourke said. "The future belongs to those willing to choose differently." Over the next cycles, the shifts became more pronounced. Fleet commanders who had been loyal to the Council publicly defected. Civilian populations demanded freedom. Reports flooded the human command with evidence of mutinies and rebellions across the empire. Through it all, Saris worked tirelessly. She spoke to the people, traveled to different sectors via secure channels, and coordinated with loyalists to stabilize regions willing to embrace change. Rourke remained by her side, not as a bodyguard but as a partner in strategy and resolve. One evening, aboard the carrier, Saris approached him while the fleet drifted quietly near a neutral system. "You know," she said softly, "I always thought humans would be ruthless. That you would do anything for victory." Rourke leaned against the railing, watching distant stars. "Some are, some aren't. I guess you found the ones who aren't." Her gaze met his. "You risked everything for me, for my people, for truth." I don't know if my people will ever understand what that means." Rourke gave a small shrug. "Doesn't matter if they understand, doesn't matter if they thank me. Someone had to make the choice. And you," Saris said, "did it without hesitation. That is what they should understand." He shook his head. "I was just following my conscience. That's all I can ever do." They fell into a quiet moment, watching the stars slide past the viewport. The galaxy was changing beneath them, one hesitant choice at a time. Weeks passed. The Velari Empire fractured further. Some regions declared neutrality, opening trade and communication with humanity. Others formed new provisional governments under Saris's guidance. The Council's hardliners attempted last-ditch attacks, but with no central authority their efforts failed. Finally, a transmission arrived from Saris's mother, the Queen. She had remained hidden throughout, avoiding confrontation until she could assess the situation. Her voice was solemn but firm. "Saris," she said, "you have done what I could not. You have spoken truth to the Empire. You have shown leadership in ways I feared to attempt, and you have survived when many believed you would not." Saris's eyes welled with tears. "Mother," the Queen continued, "you have my blessing to rebuild, to lead, to guide our people toward a new future. And Captain Rourke, he is more than a soldier. He is proof of humanity's honor. We owe him our respect." Rourke, standing beside Saris, felt a weight lift. He had never sought recognition. He had never expected it. Yet in this moment, he understood that his actions had inspired more than a single life. They had influenced an entire civilization. In the weeks that followed, the human fleet assisted where needed, though most of the rebuilding was done by the Velari themselves. Saris became a symbol of change, a ruler not by blood alone, but by courage, truth, and the willingness to act when others would not. Rourke returned to his ship, finally allowed rest. Hale joined him, leaning on the railing beside him. "So what now?" Hale asked. "Back to missions, back to war." Rourke shook his head. "Not yet. First, we let this moment breathe. Then whatever comes next, we face it together." Hale smirked. "You always were stubborn," Rourke smiled faintly, "and you always followed. Sometimes that's enough." Saris approached them, calm and confident. "Captain," she said, "your choice saved lives, but it also saved the potential for peace. Humanity has earned a place in the galaxy not by conquest, but by conscience. That is the story history will remember." Rourke met her eyes. "And your story," she smiled, faint and sad but full of hope, "it is only beginning." Outside, the stars stretched into the distance. Systems that had once been poised for war now debated, chose, and reconsidered. The Velari Empire was no longer a single voice demanding obedience. It was a civilization in flux, guided by truth, courage, and the actions of a few who refused to accept injustice. Rourke watched the galaxy, feeling something rare: hope, not blind hope, not certain hope, but hope enough to believe that choices, even small ones, could matter. Sarah stood beside him, her hand brushing his briefly. Neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. The human soldier who refused to abandon an alien princess, and the princess who refused to stay silent, had changed everything. Somewhere in the distance, lights of new worlds flickered awake. New alliances were forming, old enmities reconsidered. The galaxy was not healed, not yet, but it had been given a chance. And that chance began with one mission, one choice, one act of courage that refused to ignore what was right. Elias, Rourke, and Saris looked out at the stars together, ready for whatever came next. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and uncertain, but for the first time in generations it also felt full of possibility. The war was not over, but the story had changed. Humanity had proven its value, not through weapons but through conscience. The Velari had learned that courage could come from unexpected places, and one stubborn human soldier had shown the galaxy that even a single act could ripple across stars. The stars moved on, indifferent and eternal. Yet below them, civilizations learned, grew, and survived, because someone chose to act differently. The human soldier smiled faintly at the thought. Somewhere out there, humanity's future awaited. And this time they were ready to meet it not as conquerors but as something better. Saris turned to him. "Shall we start the next chapter?" Rourke nodded. "We already have." And with that, the galaxy began to turn in a new direction. The human soldier and the alien princess together had rewritten the course of history. One choice, one act, one spark that could not be extinguished. The mission had changed. The galaxy had changed. And humanity had proven, once again, that courage and conscience could be stronger than any weapon.